Good evening. Hello. Just get things adjusted. I'll give it a minute as people connect. Hope you've had a good week. It's been a very strange week with the weather, hasn't it? From the scorching temperatures to I don't know what it's like where you are, but we've had sort of several days of blustery, still quite warm, but very overcast, very cloudy, very sort of threatening weather. I mean, nothing's really materialized, but it has been quite a show out here on the moor where we live, watching the clouds come rolling in every day, expecting thunderheads to form. And we haven't really had any storm as yet, but the winds got up, and it's been a really strange week in that respect. In other ways, for us, it's been a really lovely week. Something that nobody had ever mentioned to us. You might have known it, but nobody ever said to us before we became parents that children don't develop in a linear sort of way. There's moments, there's sort of surges of sudden change, or where a whole group of skills or new vocabulary or ideas will suddenly sort of gel together, and there'll be a sort of a leap forward. And it's been one of those weeks, really. Lots of creativity this week, lots of wanting to draw and to sing, to drum. I mean, he loves pretty much all of my extensive collection of instruments, but there's nothing he loves more than to find something he can drum. It's been an interesting week, and even today we discovered something that I hadn't really noticed before. People who know Liz and I will know that I quite often comment that I'm always amazed at the way in which she sees the world. She's an artist, and she sees the world in a way that I simply don't see it. And sometimes that's in really extraordinary, detailed, complex ways, but it's also in such basic things as she sees colors I don't see. And when she explains them to me, then I understand what she is telling me, so I can sort of intellectually say, oh, I see what you see. But I don't really see it. I couldn't see it for myself unless she pointed it out to me. At its simplest, many years ago now, it's nearly 2 decades since I stopped doing my job in IT and finance. And I had a little car. It was probably the first time I bought a car that I really bought because I just liked it. And it wasn't necessarily the most practical car that we could have bought, but it was a little Toyota, nothing very posh or anything special. But to me, it was a really lovely car, and I always thought of it as my little green car. When I left work, Liz used that car for her commute for some time, and then when it finally was on its last legs, she liked it so much we went out and bought another one. It was identical, and to me, it had always been my little green car. Well, to Liz, it was her little blue car. And to this day, I simply, whenever I look at it, I can't see it as being a blue car. To me, it's a green car. And Liz, who sees the world very much more distinctly than I do, is like, no, it's definitely blue. And we joke about it, and we joke about what the manufacturer calls it and all the rest of it. But at that most basic level. And what's been really interesting, particularly as our little lad is starting to draw, and particularly, I guess, this last week, he's been really wanting to use some of my digital technology that I use for the graphics stuff to be able to draw. That gives him access to millions of colors, far more colors than really I, with my eyes, can see. And I've begun to realize he sees the world the way that his mother sees the world, and that's really exciting. And it's great to participate in and to watch that develop. And I have to be really careful that I don't say to him, "Oh, it's that," because maybe he really does see the world very differently to me. That was lovely. It's been a great week. Well, this afternoon, he likes watching videos of himself, and particularly when he's just waking up from his afternoon nap. And so I popped in not long before this evening's video, and he was sat on the bed with his mama next to him, and was watching one particular video where he is playing with our oven gloves. And he's out in the hallway with them, dancing around, and then he throws them on the floor so that they make this really satisfying kind of comical slap sound. And he thinks it's just the best thing ever, and he's giggling away and he's laughing away. And it makes the noise, and it makes me chuckle. And so I say, that's a great sound, isn't it, Ned? And he laughs, and he hits play on the video again. It's a very short clip, so he plays again, and down they go, and we both laugh. And he says to me, oh, now I know why he likes the video. I couldn't work out why he wanted to keep playing it, but it's the sound. It makes you, it's a funny sound. But it never occurred to me that anyone else would hear that and not think it was a really very beautiful, funny, amusing. No, it was like, it was the essence of slapping a glove down. It was just something. And so all of a sudden I begin to realize, well, he sees the world in a way that I don't see the world, and he hears the world in a way that perhaps his mother doesn't hear the world. I wonder how many things he perceives in ways that neither of us perceive. He's a unique human being. Those two things he seems to share with his parents, but there will be lots of things that are not linear in that way, just because one of us has that understanding of the world, or that particular perception, or that way of processing the information that we gather. It doesn't necessarily mean that he will share mine or hers, or even his grandparents, or one particular grandparent. Or he's a unique person, he's a unique human being, and I know that notionally. But it was a really good reminder. And it was a particularly good reminder because I've been rereading again some of the most famous parts of the Psalms. And at the end of Psalm 139, the last couple of verses, is a passage which is really well known, particularly to, I suppose, people who have been around church for any length of time, where David is writing something pretty daunting, it seems. He's speaking to God, and he writes about God having access to him and inviting God to really search who he is, search his thought life and his desires, and to search him, and then to assess where he's at. But it's a couple of verses where he declares something of extraordinary trust. Psalm 139, verse 23 and 24 say this: search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see, is there any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. You know, David is confident in who God is, but he's not just confident in who God is. He appears confident that God knows him well enough that if there was a problem between them, God would have already brought it up. If there was something about David which would mean that God would just say, do you know what, I've had enough of you, then God would already have withdrawn from him. He says to God, look, you know me, so search me. I mean, really investigate, find out everything there is about me. And if there's a problem in my thoughts, a problem in my desires, a problem in my fears, a problem in my plans, whatever there might be, if there's a problem, if there's something which is not pleasing to you, something which is not safe, something which is not righteous or good or noble or true, something which is wicked, which the concept of wicked in the Bible is not maybe as we use it today. It speaks really of harmful. He doesn't then say, well, God, just cover it over or forgive me. He says, no, lead me in the way that's everlasting. David is confident that God is not going to find anything that surprises him. He's not going to abandon or condemn him, but he's going to lead him into life. If you go back to the beginning of that psalm, you get to understand why David is so confident. Psalm 139 opens with these extraordinary words: oh Lord, you have searched me and known me. God, you already did it. You searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thoughts before I think them. You comprehend my path In some translations, is my going out, my intentions, and my lying down, my rest. You are acquainted with all of my ways. You know, we live in a world which I think is finally becoming aware of what it means to be known and to be understood. You know, it's one of the most precious and important things to feel as a human being. We're designed for relationship, and we're designed to want people to know us, to understand us, to comprehend us. And yet, even in that desire to be known, there is a nervousness, and our society makes an awful lot of money and an awful lot of kind of social structures depend on that ability to project who you want to be. All around the world right now, there are millions of people who spend at least some of their time portraying themselves in character, whether they do it through avatars online or through games, or they do it through groups and societies that reenact things, or there's just a real sense of we want to project who we'd like to be, who we would be if we could start again, who we would be if you didn't know anything else about us. The person who does historical reenactment at the weekend, where they get to play the part of someone heroic or adventurous, and who does a normal 9 to 5 day job, which they feel is boring and uninteresting the rest of the time. The person who online is an avatar of someone who is smart and a bit eccentric and ethereal, but they're known to be someone who is very strong and practical, and they're thought of amongst their friends as being the person who has the physical abilities. There are all sorts of different ways that we perceive ourselves, and we're beginning to understand as a society that's not a bad thing. Giving people the space to be who they are is part of treating one another with care and respect. Nevertheless, we're also increasingly aware, I think, as a society, that sometimes who we are freaks people out. You know, whenever I tell someone that I believe God loves them, I don't want them to think that what I mean is God loves who they could be. Religion says that. It says if only you sort yourself out, if only you realize your full potential, if only you don't have any more bad days, if only you can always lift your head and see the best, if you only you will always persevere no matter what it's costing you, if you are somehow good and noble and true and self-motivated to behave in a way that is morally beyond a particular standard, then somehow perhaps God will have you. Even religion, where it tries to suggest, well, you can come as you are, but hey, you know what's going to happen is he's going to change you into something beautiful. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely believe that being in a relationship with God is always going to be life changing and transforming, and I believe that everything that he does is beautiful. But I don't find anywhere in any story of who God is that he only loves people that are the finished article, that he only pays attention to people if they've done something good and noble and true, that he only welcomes people who've gone as far as they can in self-improvement. Not at all. What I believe, and I'm confident in because it's been my experience, to whatever state I was when I arrived, no matter what sort of day I'm having, no matter whether there are things that if only everybody around me knew them, they would run from me. God knew them anyway, and he loves me regardless. David has that same confidence. He doesn't get to the end of Psalm 139 and think, well, God, you better show me what I have to change before I get to you. No, no. He gets to the end of Psalm 139 confident to say, search me and know my thoughts and see if there's any wicked way in me, lead me in the way everlasting, because he knows God has no intention of rejecting him, because he starts with this confidence. God, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thoughts when they are far off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all of my ways. The God who loves and protects David, the God who knows everything about him, always did, and he understood it. See, for a lot of us, the thing that frightens us the most about opening up about who we are and sharing our experience or our inner life with other people is that we will be misunderstood. And it's not being critical of the people around you to be honest about the fact that as human beings, we do often misunderstand each other. I remember many years ago, I was in just a small little gathering of God's people, and we were worshiping and praying together. And there was an opportunity in the meeting just to ask the people that were there to pray for us. And I took that opportunity, and I took it because I was in quite a lot of pain. What I was asking for was prayer to deal with a physical situation. But before I got a chance to say, look, I've got this really significant discomfort, and I'm finding it quite hard to cope with at the moment. One of the lovely people in the room, who clearly had been in their own personal prayer life, had been praying something for me, took the opportunity to some very beautiful, wonderful things, but it wasn't what I was wanting in the moment. I wasn't angry because God is very good and God is very kind, and actually He took the pain away. But I often think of that moment, and I think here were two people, one of whom was being as open as it was possible for them to be, and the other one of whom was as well intentioned as it was possible for them to be. I mean, they wanted very much the very best God had for me. And yet there was so little understanding that they prayed about stuff I knew nothing about. And they didn't pray in any way about the thing that I really desperately wanted prayer for. But God in that moment understood, and He knew. And so I didn't need to say anything. I didn't need to correct them, because my hope was that God would do something, and God did something. David understands that God doesn't love a version of him. He doesn't love David, but he's misunderstood his motives or his desires. No, he knows David. He knows everything about him. He knows the good stuff and the bad stuff. And let's be honest, even what little we know about David's challenges and the things that he struggled with, there's plenty of things that you would look at David and say, well, why would God be bothered? If I was David, I'd be running and hiding. If I believed all the extraordinary things David speaks about when he speaks about the power of God and the holiness of God and the judgment and justice of God, I would be just running and screaming. But the reality is, David also understands this: God loves him. He completely loves him. Last week, I've had reason again to think about the mental health challenges that are all too common amongst people of my age, my generation, but also the generations that come on after. Just in various comments online, various practical experiences, there are a lot of people right now who are grieving for the loss of young people who felt they weren't heard or understood, who felt like nobody could really love them, that the best thing they could offer the world was to leave it. And in some ways, it's a really positive thing to hear people with a platform in our society starting to talk about the mental health of young men, particularly. The leading cause of death amongst men aged, was it 21 to 46, that sort of, or 45. So I would say 46 because that's my age, but the leading cause of death is young men taking their own lives. I think about David, and I think about his struggles. I think about the times that he was homeless, that he was attacked, that he was on the run, that he was misunderstood, the times when he was so terrified he pretended to be mad, the times when even his friends and his family betrayed him. And I think the only thing that could possibly have kept him sane, that could possibly have stayed his hand, that could possibly have kept him going and not allowed him to give up, is that he understood that God saw him, and God understood him, and God received him. Tonight, I don't know where you're at. This is not just for men in a particular age bracket. This is for every human being there has ever been. I want to tell you that God loves you. He doesn't love a version of you. He doesn't love your potential. He doesn't love what he might be able to make out of you. He loves you. He loves you. And there's so much nonsense about prayer, but let me tell you from my own experience. See, it's a slightly funny story in some ways of somebody praying for me, but praying something that I had no idea what they were praying about when I'd actually really wanted prayer for a particular physical need. The reality is, in lots of my life, I haven't known what to pray. I haven't known what to pray. You know, the practicalities of our situation right now with my illness and the impact it has on us as a family because of taking COVID precautions seriously. And there are days I don't know what to pray. Do I want out? Do I want it over? How do I want it over? What do I want to change? I don't have answers. I can't pray intelligently, but I trust God. And the days when I'm frustrated, I don't have to hide that from him. I can go to God and talk about hurts that I've inflicted on myself. And he hears me and he loves me and he understands. I can go to God with all the garbled outpouring of my emotional state. He hears me and he understands. And so I'm really confident that whoever you are and whatever you're going through, and even if you can't find words and even if you can't see a way forward, that you can just take it to God. You can just start speaking to him. Internally, if that is what works for you, or externally, just say it out. I would say, know that people aren't always quite so understanding. I was once sitting in my car on the driveway praying, and I had my eyes closed, but I was praying quietly out loud. And the next thing, one of our neighbours had jumped over the wall, was banging on the window because what they saw was me leant forward on the steering wheel, slumped, apparently mumbling something, but with no sign of consciousness, and the engine still running. People may misunderstand, but it doesn't matter. God knows. The God who loves you, the God who has given everything that he is for you. That's the story of Jesus. That's what the cross is about. It's about God coming right into the heart of our trouble, experiencing the worst of life, dying in our place, and in doing so, taking total control of death itself, control of guilt and shame and fear, taking back the authority over this creation that we had lost. You might say, well, surely that would give him reason to be able to say, well, why can't you do better? But that was not his motive. His motive was to declare, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. His motive was to offer you life. His motive was to demonstrate love. His motive was that you might be free, to come running into the presence of the God who loves you, to just cry out wherever you're at, to just speak whatever's in your heart, in your mind, to be honest before God and say, God, I need life. God, I need you to, as David puts it in that slightly Old Testament-y kind of poetic translation, I need you to lead me in the ways that are everlasting. God, I need you to make a way from here. I need you to show me a path going forward. God, I need you to take me by the hand and to guide every step. God, I need you to hold me up when I'm stumbling. God, I need you to be my strength when I'm too weak to move. God, I need you to speak peace to the fears and the thoughts of my mind, even the ones that are not legitimate, the ones that aren't real, the ones that are imagined, the ones that other people would tell me not to be so foolish or to fear the worst. God, you won't condemn them. I trust you. Tonight, whoever you are and wherever you're at, you are loved. You're loved right now. You're not loved in some future state. You're not, well, you could be loved. No, no, tonight you are loved. Tonight, everything that God has, He wants to make available to you. And perhaps the most precious thing that God could ever do is let you speak and know that you've been understood, that you've been heard. The Bible says an amazing thing about Jesus that I think religious folk miss. It says that He didn't come to condemn the world. It's not just anybody saying those words. It's not just some hopeful biblical character or an enthusiastic disciple. Jesus Himself says that He didn't come to condemn. Another place He says that the will of His Father is that of all those He's been given, and the Bible says that He's been given all of us, that He should not push anyone to the side, that He should not cast anyone out, that He should not abandon, ignore, despise, or reject anybody. He loves you. And in a way that not even your closest friends and family, not even those who love you with the very best that they could possibly love you, not even those who've known you for a long time and you feel like, well, most of the time they get me. No one but God can know you, understand you, and speak life to you in the way that He can. There's a Stephen Curtis Chapman song. I just want to share the lyrics with you before I finish. Apologies to the great songwriter if I get them wrong slightly. I'm doing this from memory. I should have put them in my notes, but they just come to me now, really. It's a song called Miracle of Mercy. This is how the lyric goes. He says, if the truth were known and a light was shone on every hidden part of my soul, could I show my face if it weren't for the grace of the one who's known the truth all along? If the truth was shown, you'd see that the only hope for me is Jesus. The grace of Jesus, but oh, the goodness and the grace of Him. He takes it all and makes it mine, causes His light on me to shine, and He loves me with a love that knows no end, just as I am, not as I do. Could this be real? Could it be true? It could only be a miracle of mercy. If the walls could speak of the times I've been weak when everybody thought I was strong, folks would turn away, shake their heads, and say, He still has such a long way to go. If the walls could speak, they'd say that my only hope today is Jesus. The grace of Jesus, but oh, the goodness and the grace of Him. He takes it all and makes it mine, causes His light in me to shine, and He loves me with a love that never ends, just as I am, not as I do. Could this be real? Could it be true? It can only be the miracle of mercy. That's my hope. That's my confidence. That's my experience. And I am absolutely sure that God has not got favorites. Goodness knows if He had favorites, I wouldn't be one of them. But you might be. Nevertheless, whoever you are, God doesn't pick and choose. Whoever calls out to Him, whoever just says to Him, God, here I am, you know me. You know me. I trust You to search every part of me because You knew me before I ever came into existence. God, lead me into life. Lead me in ways everlasting. Tonight you are loved. You are understood. And God is just waiting to take you by the hand and to lead you forward into a future that right now you may not even be able to imagine, but a future of life and of hope and of peace and of that extraordinary confidence that comes when we just totally and is committed to us unreservedly. It's not about to be surprised by who we are. He knows us, and knowing us, tonight he's there for us as he is every single breath of our lives. Lord bless you. Have a great week. Don't forget, you can get the details below these videos. It normally takes a few minutes for the details to update and pop up after the video. We are always willing to pray, either for things that you tell us or things that you don't. There's no reason for us to know. God does. We like to rejoice with people when they want to tell us about the good things God is doing in their lives. But the Lord bless you, and God willing, we'll see you next Sunday.